will have his meeting.
We'll have my meeting. Do we have a time limit for this meeting?
Oh, you can take as long as you want. But it doesn't have to be long. It can be short too.
It can take 3 hours or so.
2.5.
Maybe I'll sit here.
Got all these stories I gotta share with you guys. Oh. Could steal some tea while I'm over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're on, Daniel. Go ahead.
I feel nice and important now. I'm not going to assert my dominance or anything while I'm up here. Hi, Logan. How's it going? It's a long video, I know. Okay. I call this meeting to order. Is that a parliamentary procedure?
Sure.
Sure, okay. I will remember that. For the purpose of this meeting, I am going to find papers out of my very large stack. Purpose of this meeting is, number one, to have a meeting. And also to figure out if my idea that I have presented in one of these papers is any good, and if you guys can tweak it and stuff like that. Hopefully that sounds dandy to everybody. Does that sound dandy? Can I have a motion to carry on with the meeting, dandy or not?
A motion to carry on with the daily meeting.
Can I have a second? I second the motion. Okay. Sorry, talk. Yeah, that's right. I don't have it. Okay. People are helpful in meetings. Thank you, Esther. I see that we have resolved our conflicts. Okay. Goals for this meeting. Like what we said, to figure out how we can connect with Christians in this youth ministry in Europe, and how to work with mature ones who can help us connect to teens who don't know God yet. And okay, we are all participating in this meeting except for Dr. Bonine. He's just writing. He's critically supervising. Okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're all agreed on this location being this room, unless we would like to move to someone else's room. Restroom's also there, so that might be cramped. So I'm calling this meeting to order here, which I kind of already called it to order. Okay. I don't know parliamentary procedure. For my communication tools, I'm using my mouth. And that's it. Today we're going to work through, in the next few minutes, we're going to work through this plan that I have proposed. And we're going to see if it needs any adjustments, as if any plan of mine could ever use adjustments. And we're going to try to fix it if it needs fixing, and we will see if we can vote on it or not. So, does everyone have a copy of this? Has a copy, I'm sure. Okay, well, Talk has one. So, something can happen there. Esther can come sit in my seat of fun. There we go. Okay, so looking through this plan, my plan, as I've already stated, is to get more local Christians involved in this ministry and help promote it to teens in the community. And the goals are just to be able to get teens, more teens to the youth group. that we're having. So, what do you guys think of this so far?
And the goal is a good goal.
It's a good goal.
Yes.
Is there anything that could be tweaked about this goal? Make it more interesting, exciting?
That's great.
Okay, it is perfect. Okay, my plan is to start going into churches in the community and creating relationships kind of with them and just working through seeing if there's anybody that would like to help out with this ministry. Does that sound like a good plan of action?
How do you, I guess, plan to approach the churches? Because you're just going to show up and be like, hey, come help. Or are you going to go for a while and build relationships? Or are you just going to
Probably go for a while and build relationships.
So what timeline have you put on your plan?
What timeline do I have on my plan? Well, I'm not there yet. So. If I graduate college. No. Is this hypothetical meeting? Yeah, we already have this ministry started, right? This meeting? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So my timeline would be 6 months to establish relationships with maybe 2 churches.
Are there any specific types of churches you're looking for? Just Christian churches, I assume?
I would be looking for churches that have at least Christians that actually believe versus just kind of wishy-washy, not caring. Because that's a lot of Europe. And yeah.
Do you have any ideas how to present? I feel like this is more of an interview. How are you going to present your ministry?
How am I going to present my ministry? Most likely, if I'm going with Young Life, that's kind of my plan, or what I thought of, I would be able to present it with some of the materials that they have, or some of the information they have, maybe some videos if they have those. If not, then I can create my own videos.
So, what is your ministry is? What are you gonna do?
Inside the youth group, or
so
to the
yeah, you wrote like my ministry. What is?
Okay. Yeah, that would be being them to just help me out with creating this environment for teens to come, and for this ministry is just for teens to be able to gain that biblical worldview through knowing Christ, and yeah.
What are you gonna do like specifically?
Specifically, well, a lot of the things that people try, or that Young Life does, is they focus a lot on not only doing fun things, but incorporating Christian atmosphere in those things and Christian teaching inside of these fun activities, like Dr. Bonine mentioned earlier, soccer camps or stuff like that. Different camps also. So.
Is this going to be like very much in a church-related ministry, or is it going to be?
It would be more parachurch kind of ministry.
Do you already have any ideas of what activities you'd like to start planning and things?
I think a soccer camp would be a good activity, or camp, not activity.
Yes. Would you consider doing like separate camps for like girls and boys, or have co-ed camp if you had enough people?
we have to look at how many people I could get involved, like this plan is looking at, and decide that after the amount of people. But it could be either. Is there any more statements that the people would like to state? Any ideas or adjustments?
I would suggest to have a variety of activities. I mean, soccer camp is a great way to start since they already love soccer. But from there, I would, continue doing a soccer camp, every year or whatever. And then also add different types of activities to attract different types of people.
So is soccer popular in is Hungary?
Yeah, it is.
The most popular sports?
Yeah, it would be the most popular.
That's great.
It'd be kind
What?
of cool. Another suggestion, like once you got this up and going and you started growing, I guess the spiritual maturity in these teens to start like how Logan suggested, like the small group type things, to start implementing things like that so that they're more focused on the Bible once they want that.
Okay. So a small group later on to help grow in maturity. Good idea. Anything else? Okay, I do not hear anything else. We can go ahead and vote on this plan of mine and us that we created together. Do I have a motion to enact this plan?
Yes. I motion to activate this plan through Daniel Pitts in Hungary.
Can I have a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
All in favor, say nay.
Say aye.
Say aye.
Aye. All in favor say yes. Not no. Nay is no.
Well, horses say it all the time. I was just trying to put a positive atmosphere with horses.
Right.
Okay, so nobody said anything, but okay.
All in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Okay, if nobody responds, say all in favor, raise your right hand. There. So what can you announce now, Daniel? That it was a
This-
unanimous decision.
Was a very unanimous decision by
Yep.
most of us. That's what unanimous means.
A unanimous. That means everybody agreed with it. Nobody voted against it. A unanimous decision to implement the plan. All right. That's all there is to it. Just like that.
Good job.
So congratulations.
Thank you for being the one to go first.
It's fun to sit in the seat of power.
Is that what this is?
Yeah.
All right. So now, after everybody has a meeting, we talk about the meeting.
Okay. Can we just talk about me?
So we just talk about. Now we talk about how his meeting went. So we asked Daniel first. How did you feel about the meeting, Daniel?
It was slightly impromptu and awkward.
Mm-hmm.
But you volunteered to go today, didn't you? So you didn't have much time to get prepared. So, what did you think about the meeting, Esther?
I feel like we were successful.
A successful meeting. What did you think about it, Doc?
It was fun. Fun meeting.
Fun meeting, okay? And did he keep things moving?
Yes.
Did he announce his agenda? The purpose of the meeting? You knew the purpose of the meeting? What did he say? Does everyone have a copy? And talk, you saved the day. You pulled out your copy. And then I thought that was good that he said, Esther, you didn't have one, so he just said, can you sit over here and look on with it to see? That was a good move on your part. But can you see where if you'd have known you were going to do this yesterday, you could have brought an extra one of those to pass out to everybody, but that was a good move on your part. So then he announced that we're going to evaluate this, and he said, what do you think of it? Anything to add? Wasn't that a good way to ask it? Do you have anything you want to add to this? And what happened when you started asking questions?
We got more details of the plan.
And did he give you adequate answers to your questions?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a timeline? And what did he say? I don't have one.
Well, he said 6 months.
And then he recovered. Because if you'd have just said, I don't have one, I would have got you on that later, Daniel. But it's just like you said, and it's okay to say, I didn't have one in my plan, but now that you've asked, I'm thinking 6 months. Because I put that in here. I thought that was good that you did that. Because you say, well, I didn't have time in my plan. Okay, but someone wants to know what your timeline is. And he could have said, well, I don't have a time in my plan because it doesn't matter. Well, that would have gone back to the schism you guys had before, wouldn't it? It's like, there it goes. It's like not working on relationships here. So it's just like, I thought he was very good the way he said, probably about 6 months. So it gave him, I don't know where the 6 months came from, but it answered your question and it gave him something too. In a sense, it's kind of like now he's got 6 months to kind of think it through, and if he decides 6 months isn't working, then he can expand that or do something. But that was I thought that was a good move on his part. Did he answer all of your questions adequately?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't always hear all the questions completely, but I thought when he seemed to be answering directly. Did you have any questions that you didn't get clear answers to? Well, Daniel, you get 100% on that. Is that cool? All right, all right. And then I put a star down here where it said, after all this, because it's like he didn't just let it die waiting for something. He said, he took a pause and he said, any more ideas? Now, what does it say after you've asked all these questions? If he says, any more ideas or any more adjustments? What's he telling you by asking that question?
That he was getting ideas and
What, Esther?
that he was already gleaning ideas from
That he was ready. And what did he do with some of the things that you guys suggested? Did you see him pick up his pencil and write some stuff down?
Mm-hmm.
How did that make you feel, Esther? Doesn't it? What happens when the guy up front he's explaining his thing and looking for you to vote to go ahead with this, and then you make suggestions and he writes them down?
Feel like you had quality.
It feels like you had some quality contribution. It just makes people feel good about what's going on. You're just a natural at doing this. Did you know that, Daniel?
No, I didn't.
Well, there you go. Isn't that good to learn that about yourself? That here in this little brief meeting, that you realize that I just kind of naturally do some things that are very beneficial.
Okay.
And then after you said any more ideas or any more adjustments, there were some more questions raised, and you just answered the questions straight away and took care of it. and then said, so now, and see, some people forget to do this. So now we need to vote on a motion to implement this plan. And thanks to Esther, she made a motion, and he did the proper thing from parliamentary procedure. Is there a second to the motion? And did you second it, Todd? Oh, I didn't see him second it, so I said, I second the motion because I wasn't sure anybody was helping.
We had a second.
Yeah, the second, okay. And then you had us vote, and all in favor say nay. No. The words are in Old English, A-Y-E and N-A-Y. A or nay. And it's like they sound so close together, but one is yes and one is no. And I'm thinking, it just makes sense, doesn't it? In our culture, say, all in favor say yes. But since I've studied parliamentary procedure, I say, all in favor say aye. I think it's A, but I go aye, and we go aye, and all opposed say no. I mean, you can modify things. And then if nobody says anything, which is what happened, wasn't it? Nobody said anything. So then the next move is all in favor, raise your right hand. And then you see the hands go up.
Just go until everybody is in agreement.
Just to make sure, because I want to make sure, I want some kind of indicator that everybody's in agreement with this. And if Esther raised her hand and Talk didn't, then you would ask, what would you ask next? After you said, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. And if Talk's hand goes up, what would you have done?
Run away.
What you say is, well, it's a 50-50 vote to implement the plan. And then you would look at Talk and say, Talk, do you have a problem with this plan? And if he goes, no, I just didn't understand what you were asking me to do. It's like, okay, I want you to vote to approve my doing this. And it's like, do you need my approval? And what's the answer? Yes, we want this to be something that we're making decisions as a group. And if somebody says no, then I say, why did you vote no? And they said, well, it doesn't matter. I'm the only one voted against it. Everybody else voted for it. But see, now this is just my approach, because this unanimity thing, like when I said you could write down that it was a unanimous decision, I love that word, unanimous. And I've had people tell me that, Tom, it's unrealistic to want everybody to agree to the plan. And I'm going, it might be unrealistic, but when the Bible talks about unity and oneness and they were all in one accord, that's not a car. They were all unanimous about doing this kind of thing. So I kind of modify this parliamentary stuff and majority rules thing to the idea that if somebody votes no, it's like, so what are your reservations? And then I pick up my pencil and I want to write down what their concerns are. And it could be, I say, well, those are valid concerns. Let's talk about that a little bit before we have the final vote. And then we'll go back and discuss it some more and make some adjustments. And I said, so if we make this change, would that make you happy? Yes, it would. So, and I will, now I'm not saying you should do this, but I'm just sharing with you how I do things. I would make a minor adjustment to make someone happy so I could have a unanimous vote, as opposed to having one person who votes no and not have that unanimity. Because I want that so bad. I just like the idea that everybody voted for the idea. Everybody's in favor of us doing this. Okay, good meeting. Thank you very much. And tomorrow, Talk and Esther will do their meetings. Now, what am I doing? And I'll bet the two of you are going to bring your little handouts, aren't you? You know that thing you posted on, yeah, your little plan? You'll bring that to pass out for everybody?
Okay.
Since you're doing it tomorrow? He didn't have to because he did it today. Well, I made a copy of his and passed it out the other day, didn't I? So we already technically still had one. Okay. So where are we now? Oh, we're talking about supervising. And I happen to have a checklist for supervising. What would you think if you were a Sunday school teacher and I'm the Sunday school superintendent and I came up to you and said, have you noticed that I come around from time to time and sit in the back of your Sunday school class to watch what's going on? That's my job as a Sunday school superintendent. You probably would like to know what kind of things I'm looking for. So here's the checklist. So let's assume I'm the superintendent of the Sunday school and you're my teachers. And I say, so here's the checklist I use when I come by to sit in your classroom. I sit in the back with my checklist and I have my pencil, and what's the first thing I'm looking at? Knowledge of the job. Do they understand what a Sunday school teacher is supposed to be doing? And even though I'm there just for a short time, does it look like they're doing an excellent, good, average, fair, or poor job? You follow what's going on? And then experience. Hey, I could mark that before I ever come into class, couldn't I? Well, I don't know. Well, they've been teaching Sunday school here for 10 years. Well, have they been doing the same thing for 10 years, or have they been growing as a teacher? If I sat in the back of their room, should I get the impression that they've got 10 years of experience, or would it show if they only had 1 year of experience 10 times? Probably would show a little bit, wouldn't it? So you might want to be there to watch. You know something? If I'm going to sit in the back of the room and with this checklist, I think, this is just my personal reaction, I think this list is too long. I would like to have a shorter list. So if you were making up a list and you were the superintendent, which items would be on your list?
Enthusiasm.
Okay, that was one I had circled too, Esther. So I'm going to circle 5. And what's another one?
Sociability.
Number 10. Just keep looking over the list and see which ones. In other words, we're going to use this list to make our own little checklist, and we're not going to put all this stuff on there. It's too long.
Maybe?
13. Acceptance of responsibility. 10 was sociability. 5 was enthusiasm. Any others you want to circle? Talk, you want to circle one?
I'd say 18 is pretty important in Sunday school.
18, accuracy.
And 24.
24, Esther says, planning and organizing.
Probably creativity as well.
Creativity, number 26. Any others you want to put on your list?
21 would be pretty important.
Which one?
21.
21, how you handle people.
Like, people can get angry in Sunday school.
Is that it?
15? Initiative?
15, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Initiative. Any others you want to add? I might take 22 and 23 and put them together and look to see how they delegate things. If you're a Sunday school teacher, you should have some people who are assisting you. Who should, okay, in your Sunday school class, what should the people who are what kind of work should you be delegating to other people in your Sunday school class if you're the teacher of the Sunday school class?
Writing stuff on the marker board.
Passing out papers.
What?
Passing out papers.
Any handouts you have? Passing out handouts? Writing what kind of stuff on the whiteboard?
Like prayer requests.
Taking prayer requests?
If it's in a younger child or children in Sunday school, like taking kids to the bathroom or something.
If somebody has some kind of a need, they're there to go take care of it, so you don't have to stop teaching to handle it. Someone who takes attendance, greets people when they come in the room. I'm surprised that more teachers, and in fact I've had Sunday school teachers say, you know, there's so many things to take care of. All this prayer request stuff and attendance and everything, and people asking questions about this and that, and visitors coming in and where do I take my kids. It's like it takes away from my teaching time. Well, you're supposed to have somebody in your room who takes care of that responsibility for you. I am? I didn't know that. So that's why I would put something like that on my checklist to see, do they have people doing all these jobs? Any others you want to add? I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we've taken our list down from 27 to 9. So put your finger up here and say, okay, so now I'm walking in the room with a list that's on a little sheet of paper, and there's only 9 items on the list. Put your thumb right where 10 is, and you say, now I've got my checklist for this class isn't this whole big page. So now what did I just give out to the teachers that came in the room? Not this whole thing, but what? 9 things. You see how helpful that is? Now that's doable. And when I give you those 9 things and say these are the 9 things I'll be looking for when I come in the checklist, when I come in to look at what you're doing, and I feel like I can handle those 9 things when I walk in there and sit in their class for a little bit, and I can check off on those 9 things, and that way I don't have to try to wade through all 27 of them. It's called taking stuff that's out there, that's written for everybody, and picking the things that are most important to us and making it doable. Good. All right. We've done that one. So now what? Oh, put the paper clip on it and move on to the next one. Let's see, what is this? What? What does this say? Did I use an emotive word here? I mean, that checklist word isn't so emotive, is it? I mean, it could be a little bit emotive with 27 things on it, but when we cut it down to 9, we've got a reasonable checklist. But what's the emotive word here?
Evaluation.
Evaluation. The employee's name or the volunteer's name, the department, the date prepared, the review. So now this means that I'm on the left here, I'm going to write down some things that as the result of us having a conversation. So let's just see if I can have a conversation with all 3 of you at once. So what are the specific objectives that you're trying to accomplish in your Sunday school class?
Teach kids Bible stories and Bible verses.
Teaching Bible stories and Bible verses to my children. What about you, Daniel?
Teach people stuff from the Bible. Like,
Teach people stuff from
trying to make it different from what.
Teach people stuff from the Bible. What are you going to do in your Sunday school class, Todd?
Bible story.
Teaching Bible stories to the teens over in Japan? That's okay, that's measurable. What are your performance standards? What? What's your objective in Sunday school?
Teaching kids the Bible and memory verses.
So, are there certain things in the Bible that we expect to be taught to the children every year in this Sunday school?
Might be.
Do we have a curriculum guide for our Sunday school? Have any of you taught Sunday school anywhere? Were you given a curriculum guide? Did you follow the guide?
Somewhat.
Well, guess what? What performance standard am I going to use? The curriculum guide. And I'm going to ask you, which things on the curriculum guide have you covered this year? And which things did you omit? And probably would ask why. What is it you're teaching in your Sunday school class? What did you say, Daniel?
The Bible.
Stuff from the Bible?
Yeah.
And what stuff from the Bible are you teaching in your Sunday school class?
Just different life, or not really life lessons, but just different lessons that would pertain to teen life.
Have you taught Sunday school before?
I've taught children's Sunday school.
Did they have a curriculum guide for you?
Yeah.
Did you follow it?
Nope. It was really bad, okay? In my defense, it was really bad.
And do you see where we need to talk about that? And you need to talk to the supervisor about it and say, this is bad, this is not relevant stuff. And since we're talking about the future, because we're not going to have you teach those little kids anymore because you won't stay with the curriculum, because the rest of the people in the Sunday school think that those are good stories for the little kids to have. So since you don't like that, we're going to let you teach those teens, which you want to work with anyway. Now, and what is it you're going to be teaching those teens? What scriptures are specifically relevant? Are you going to teach books of the Bible? Or are you going to teach themes? Are you going to teach topics? Or are you going to teach Bible characters?
Topics, probably.
And what are the topics you're going to be covering?
Just ones that would relate to their life.
And can you give me a list of the topics that relate to their life and the scriptures that you're going to be using?
Probably.
Not right now, but you could have it ready for me by when?
A week from now.
That'll work. And then that'll be the criteria that I'll use, you follow me, that I'll use to critique how well you're doing your job. Talk? You're going to be teaching Bible stories, is that what you said? What Bible stories are you going to be teaching those young teenagers in Japan?
Oh.
Every single.
Every single one of them?
I'm thinking one with Elijah and the bears.
David?
Okay, so you're saying, so now see what's going to happen? I'm going to ask him to, in order so we can have a performance standard, what am I going to ask him for? A list of the stories you're going to be teaching to the teens in Japan. And then I'll ask afterwards, have you taught these? And the next time we'll have a review, we'll put down the date, and once I've got that from you, I'll be asking, I'll be using it as a checklist. Okay? Now, what am I going to do when I sit in the back of the room and observe you? I'm going to use the checklist that we've already had here. And then I'm going to let you see the checklist, and we'll talk about it, and you sign off on it, and I sign off on it. Do you know any Sunday school that's this detailed in evaluation? No. We're just volunteers out here having a good time. You know, I get so frustrated with Sunday school. I wish we could give grades in Sunday school and fail people for not doing their assignments. It would be so much more productive. Never could get a Sunday school superintendent to go along with that idea. But can you see in the workplace, if you're supervising someone, how practical this kind of stuff is? And I really think we could adapt some of this to the Sunday school and just have a better handle on what we're doing. It's almost like that criteria that we use to evaluate becomes like their goals, doesn't it? That motivates them to stay on track and cover the stuff they're covering. Okay, what's next here? Oh, conducting a performance evaluation. So now we've got you in the office. Now that I've met with you, and I've got the criteria, and I've got the checklist, and you've got it all in front of you there, and you know what's going to happen. Now I meet with you individually for a performance review. And I talk about measurable objective and performance standards for your, and let's just keep following the format of your teaching Sunday school, okay? You're a Sunday school teacher, and I noticed on the on my checklist that you didn't have a lot of people helping you. You were kind of doing everything yourself. So let's work on getting some people to help you in your class. Let's work on finding an assistant to take care of the prayer request, another one to take attendance, and someone else to help the new people find their way around and help them get their children to the right class and find out what's going on and help them find classes. You follow what's going on? And then that's the first week we meet, and so then after about 3 weeks, well, for the first week, so on the fourth week, 3 weeks later, then I say, so do you have someone taking prayer requests? Do you have someone taking attendance? No, I haven't got around to it yet, Tom. Now what am I going to say? Well, do you need me to look over your roster and call the people in your class and ask them who would be willing to take care of the prayer request stuff? Well, Tom, I kind of like being in charge of the whole thing myself. I know you do. You're just the kind of in-charge person that you are. But we've got other people in the church who need to learn how to do some of these jobs. We need to spread the work around and let other people have some of the joy of doing the work too. So I'm just going to keep working with him. And then after 12 weeks, come back and look at this stuff again. Are we on schedule? Has something else happened that we need to talk about? And what happens if things aren't working out? Well, that brings us to the performance evaluation session. What am I going to do? I'm going to number one, commit to I'm going to say, look, I'm here to help meet the needs that you have. Is there anything, so I'm going to start out by asking, is there anything you need to get your work done successfully? Yes, we need some kind of book to take attendance in for our person who takes attendance. Okay, good, I'll get one of those. You understand? See, the evaluation session is an excellent vehicle for demonstrating to employees that management is committed to meeting their work-related needs. So when someone comes in for a performance evaluation, it's healthy to say, is there anything you need to help you do your job better? Is there something I can do to help you? And then the second one is It's a setting for delegating decision-making power to the employees. So what decisions have you been given to do, or what decisions would you like to have the power to decide? And where have you, what kind of changes have you made that have resulted in improvements in what's going on? And have you been given any positive recognition for the good things you're doing? Or do all you get is criticism? You understand? I need to ask that kind of stuff. And then, boy, look at that emotive words. Constructive criticism. Giving constructive criticism is needed. Constructive criticism. That sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? I'm thinking helpful suggestions. Find some positive emotional words to use for that. And focus on two-way talking back and forth. In most cases, the manager should begin the session by asking the employee to identify his work-related needs. Then they should reach agreement on how these needs can best be met by the supervisor. So what can I do for you? Focus on acquiring the employee's ideas and input. Ask them for input concerning the status of their work, progress being made, problems that have developed since the last meeting, and recommendations for improvements. I'm asking them to tell me some stuff that I don't know that we can make things better here. Make decisions within your framework to make things go better. Use the performance evaluation to maintain a written record of progress and actions taken. So you write down, you take notes on what's being said, you write this stuff down, and at the end of the session, and this is something I didn't do one time, and it got me in trouble because I didn't have the guy sign off on what we said in our evaluation meeting. And then after several evaluations, I said, you know, we've talked about this same problem over and over and over again, and apparently you're not either willing to make the change or able to make the change. So since you can't do the job that we're asking you to do, we're not going to renew your contract to work here anymore. And we had 4 or 5 conversations about what he needed to do, but I didn't have him sign it. So after all this, he said, so you're not going to hire me for next year? And I said, no. And he immediately went to the president and said, Tom just fired me, and he didn't give me any warning at all. And I said to the president, here are the records of the meetings we had where I told him what was written on this form. And he said, did you have him sign it? And what did I have to say? No. He said, well, he says you didn't tell him this. So what did I learn the hard way? Have people sign this stuff. I mean, it's a little uncomfortable having them sign it, but have them sign it, because if you don't, it can get you in trouble down the road. All right. And see, part of it, I was just trying to be nice to the guy. You know, I was trying to, I mean, when I tell him he's got to make these improvements or he could be in trouble, then I go take a pen and sign it. It's like, that just seemed like, you know, rubbing salt in a wound. So I was giving him a break. Shouldn't have given him the break. Should have had him sign it. All right. What's the next one? Oh, one more here. This is the one we talked about a little bit early on. So, what about volunteers? Do we want job descriptions and evaluations and criteria for measuring success for volunteers as well as for paid employees? What do you think? I think we better find some way to do it in a way that keeps good records for the Sunday school as well as is helpful to the overall program and to the people. Do we need to constantly be evaluating what's going on? Do you like the idea of sitting in, watching somebody do their job and evaluating them? Maybe I should ask it the other way. Do you like somebody evaluating you? I'm standing over in the Langmaid room teaching my math class on my little tablet that I had to buy because, 28 people in the room, they can't all see the little whiteboard up in front, so I had to get a tablet so I could project it on a screen for them. And so I'm teaching with my tablet, and I've not used one before, so it's new for me, holding it and teaching with it like that. And all of a sudden I look up and there's Dr. Bittner, my supervisor, standing in the back of the room. Now, I've been doing this for years, right? So I should just keep on going and be comfortable. Dr. Bittner's in the back of the room evaluating my teaching. I don't think, in fact, at the end of the semester when students evaluate us and they send those to us in the mail after we've turned our grades in or after they get them all collected, I always get nervous reading those after all these years. But is it healthy to be evaluated? Is it good for us to be evaluated? So if it's good for me to be evaluated, somebody has to be the evaluator, and that's Dr. Bittner. And he probably knows when he walks through, it makes me a little nervous. But he just has to say, but that's my job. That's part of being the academic dean. And I just watch him and say, I have to do some evaluation of what goes on here. That's his job. And even if it makes me a little nervous or uncomfortable, I have to say, I appreciate that and I want it and thank you for your help and suggestions. So, people or task, or is it both? We have a task to be done, we have people to do it. If this person can't do task A, maybe they can do task B. If they can't do task A, B, C, D, E, or F, and those are the only tasks that need to be done for me, what do I need to do? Send them on to another department. See if they can work out in another department other than mine, because all the tasks in my department, they're not able to do. Now, here's the upside of this. So I had someone working in the registrar's office years ago, and they just didn't do well working in the registrar's office, working with students who were already a little, when they came in, grades and transcripts and all that kind of thing. And so I said, we need to make some changes here in the registrar's office. And it looks like, from the way things have been going, that this really isn't working out well for you. You're not as comfortable here as you could be someplace else in the organization. And they said, so what? I'm going to lose my job? I said, no. And they said, I like working at Calvary. I said, I know you do, and we like having you work here. I'm just trying to find a better fit for you. And so I said, so here's what we have available. we need to make some changes in the registrar's office, which we're going to make, so you won't be working in the registrar's office anymore, but we have an opening in the library. And the librarian has said, yes, she would love to have you work in the library. She knows you, and she would like to have you, well, I don't know anything about the library. Well, you don't have to know anything about it. The librarian will teach you all you need to know. Well, I don't know if I'd like it or not. I said, well, give it a try for like a month, and then we'll meet at the end of the month, and you can tell me what you think, and by then, there'll probably be another opening somewhere, you know, the cafeteria, the housekeeping, who knows where there might be an opening. You follow me? She said, okay, I will. But she said, I don't think I'm going to like it. She went to the library. After about a week, I saw her, and I said, so how's it going? She said, I love this job. 3 weeks later, she said, this is so cool. And she had never thought of doing that before, and she fell in love with it. And guess what happened? She got so pumped about this new job, and because she was so excited about it, her demeanor changed in terms of how she related to students. And the students liked how she was being helpful to them over there. And she enjoyed helping with the library more than she enjoyed helping with transcripts and stuff like that. And she came to me and she said, Dr. Bonine, I have decided I'm going back to school and get me a degree in library science. I thought, wow. Okay, so can you see, as a supervisor, I had to do a painful thing to separate her from her job because she wasn't doing a good job. And I had an opening in another place where I could put her, and we hit a home run. And see, it's stuff like that that happens that says, thank you, Lord, for letting me be a supervisor who can help people find their niche in life and find their passion. So it's not just a job that I like working for this school where I have to put up with people who come in to see me. But now it's a job that I love, helping students understand this library stuff. And I don't know what the total difference was. It's just that it really rang a bell with them. But let's say that it wouldn't have worked out. Suppose it's too late. Then what? Employees that have been with you for some time is not performing, and the steps you've taken are not working. Then what do we do next? Well, there's two things that we can do. Probably this is my first approach. One time, I had a person working under me here at Calvary years ago. So this was long. You wouldn't know any of these people, or I wouldn't be telling these stories. But years ago, this person was working under a department that I was responsible for. And they came to me and said, you know, I just can't work for this new boss I have. And I said, what's the problem? And she told me what the problem was. And she had graduated from Calvary and gone to work here. And she just loved working here because she loved going to school here. And she'd been working here like 5 or 6 years. And she said, well, my new boss she said, my old boss kind of wanted me to be his assistant to help him do his work. My new boss just wants a typist to just transcribe stuff, and even when he gives me letters, if I make suggestions on how to change them, he doesn't want that. He just wants me typing away and just being like a machine. And I said, and you would like to be more of an assistant than just a secretary? Even though the name was secretary, she goes, yes. And I said, and you know, part of that is because you're growing with the job and learning more about it, and you're learning how to be not just a secretary, but like an executive secretary. I said, but the problem is, we don't have any executive secretary openings here at school. She goes, so what does that mean? I said, well, what it means is that you either make an adjustment to become a typist, which is what she called it, with derogatory tone to it, or you consider leaving here and finding an opening someplace in that bigger world out there for an executive secretary. And she looked at me and said, I don't want to leave Calvary. I said, I know you don't. And I understand that because you've been here a long time and you're in love with this school. But I said, if God brought you here to prepare you for ministry, and if he has a ministry outside of this school, how's he going to get you to say it's time to leave and move on when you're so comfortable here? And she goes, I don't know. How would he do that? And I said, by making your job that you have here less than pleasant, by bringing along a new department head who doesn't make you a happy camper. She goes, oh, Dr. Bone, I don't want to think about that. And I said, well, think about it and pray about it, and I'll pray about it. And while you're praying about it, just go look to see if there's some opportunities out there for executive secretaries, because you've reached a place where you can be an executive secretary. You just need to find somebody who wants one. And it could be, I don't know this for sure, I said, it just could be that it might be time that God wants you to move on. Oh, and she just agonized over that. And then one day she came, she said, I found this company that's run by this Christian man, and I interviewed with him, and he's excited about the fact that I came from Calvary, that I've been working at Calvary, and he likes Calvary, and he wants me to do all the kind of things I'm doing. And I told him why I didn't like my present job, and he said, that's what I'm looking for in a secretary, but I can't pay you to be an assistant kind of thing. And she said, that's okay. I didn't make much money at Calvary. I can work for a small salary. And she said, I think I'm going to take the job. And I said, well, try it and see what happens. And 6 months later, she says, thank you for helping me break loose and move on. You see, sometimes God makes us uncomfortable because that's the only way he's going to dislodge us from a place where we're very comfortable. And when I'm a supervisor, I have to realize that sometimes God's going to have me be part of the person who makes them uncomfortable so that they'll be willing to move on. So, if it can't be fixed here, and we've isolated the problem, there's only one thing left to do. If you can't help them just move on. Any idea what this last handout is? Based on what I said earlier in the class? What do you think this handout says? It's from the Art of Management for Christian Leaders. What's up in the right-hand corner? What's it say?
You're fired.
You're what?
Fired.
You're fired. Now, I've never said it that way. What I have said is that your employment relationship with Calvary has been terminated. And the guy said, as of when? And I said, as of right now. When it was a moral issue that was in violation of the standards of conduct required of professors, what did I have to do when it came to my attention? And when I confronted him with it and asked him about it, and no, I won't use the word confront, that's too emotive. When I consulted with him and asked him for his explanation of what happened, and asked him for his explanation of why it happened, and he gave me the same facts that I had from other sources, I said, but look at the handbook that you agreed to, the standards you agreed to live by when you came to work here. And he said, well, Tom, he said, since I came to work here, I've had a change of mind about those standards. I said, and you know what? When you changed your mind about those standards, you should have said, I can't sign this statement anymore. Do I get to still work here? He said, well, I knew if I asked that, you would say no. So I said, so you went ahead and signed the statement, even though you didn't agree with all of our standards? And he goes, yes. What's that called? Is that a fib or an exaggeration or a white lie? I mean, all the words we use in our culture to label a falsehood. Or is it a falsehood? I mean, if these are the standards that we have at Calvary, and he said, I agree with those standards and agree to live by them, but he didn't agree with them and hadn't agreed to live by them, what is that doing when he signs that statement? Is that a lie? Is he lying to me? Or do you guys have another word for it? Is there another word for it? I'm looking if there is one. I'm not being facetious. I'm saying, you know, I'm from a different generation. Is there another word for that today? But you really don't agree to live by those standards? Did you just lie to me? Okay, your heads are all shaking yes. If I ask you to write a paper and you take an exact quote from somebody else and put it in your paper, but you don't put it in quotes and put his name on it, you represent it as your own words, what is that called? You know what that's called? Plagiarism. Plagiarism is a fancy academic word for what?
Stealing.
Stealing something, words from another person, and representing them as your own, and lying to say they're your words. Is that a serious offense? All of our syllabi talk about it, because that's something you don't want to do that. It's wrong to do that. So why would anybody do that? Well, why did this guy do that when he signed that paper and didn't mean it? Why was he dishonest in his signature? Because he wanted to keep his job here. And he knew if he didn't sign it, he wouldn't get hired back. Well, once it came to our attention that he was living this way, then he got terminated anyway. He got fired anyway. And he said to me, I said, he said, so do I get to teach till the end of the semester? And I said, no, you're gone. We'll hire a substitute to teach the rest of your classes. You shouldn't have been working here this semester at all. You've been terminated. And he goes, what am I going to do for a job? And I said, you're a good professor. You're a good classroom teacher. And the kids all like you? He goes, yeah, so why can't I keep my job? Because of the standards that we have here that you don't agree to live by. And he goes, is it that big a deal? What's the answer to that question? Yes, it's that big a deal. And then when he realized that it was that big a deal to us, that it wasn't just a minor thing, that we had those standards for living here, then it's like, what am I going to do? And here's what I told him. I said, there's a whole bunch of Christian liberal arts colleges out there who don't have these standards. And when you apply for a job and they find out how popular you are with students and how good you are at your craft, and that this little dinky college let you go because of some picking standard they have, they'll hire you in a heartbeat and think we're the dumbest people on the face of the earth. He goes, really? I said, yes, they will. I've talked to people from those schools. I know what they say about our standards. I said, relax, you'll have a job. Just put your resume out there, and when you tell them you were terminated, tell them why, over what standard, and tell them if they want a good reference for your ability to teach, to give me a call, and I can give you a good reference on your ability to teach. On your honesty with standards, I'll tell them that you can't be trusted. He said, well, I shouldn't have done that. I said, agreed. And you could have saved both of us a lot of grief if you would have done this early on. But because you didn't, Now, there's some grief for us, there's some grief for you. We have to work through this process. But it had to be done right away because, okay, now watch. When you make decisions, you think about consequences. What if I would have said, here's a professor who committed a moral violation of our standards here at this school for professors. But we decided to let him stay and finish out the semester because we're just nice people. And then while he's teaching the rest of the semester, some family out in Kansas hears about what this guy did and that he's still teaching here. And they call me and they say, my daughter comes to your school and she's in this guy's class and I understand that he did thus and so and you didn't do anything about it. I said, yeah, we did. We told him he wouldn't be able to come back after this semester. But you knew he did this and you let him stay in the classroom, right? Do I want to say yes to that question from that parent out in Kansas? Do I want to say yes to that? No, I don't. There's only one way to avoid saying yes to that conversation, and that is to say, you're fired as of today. You follow what happens? Every decision you make has consequences. And what you think about is, if I make, and probably for me, what I have to do in my heart and mind is say, if I make this generous decision with him, what are the potential consequences from other people? And I say, sorry, I have to think more of our students and our clientele than I do of this guy and his family. So I had to send him down the road. Now, stuff like that's not fun, but I'm just telling you that you're going to have to do it. And sometimes you can ask, can I retrain somebody, like the person from the registrar's office? Yeah, we could do that. And where would this person fit in? Well, we have an opening, so let's try it, and it worked out. But other times, I just have to set a termination date. Now, the guy who wasn't doing the job like he should in the classroom and kept getting poorer and poorer evaluations every semester, can you see where I could say to him, at the end of this school year, we will not be offering you a job. Well, here we are in January. January is when we're offered jobs for the next year. So in January, I'd be saying, you can finish out the semester, but you will not be offered a job for next fall. So that gives him till the end of the semester to find someplace else to go. But for this other guy, that was such a violation of standards, of expectations. Over here, he wasn't living up to expectations in the classroom in his performance. I can work with that a little bit. Over here, he violated the standards that are a serious moral offense. He's gone in a heartbeat. And sometimes, one time, I had a boss, a president, who said to me, he said, you're a hard man, Tom. And I said, well, you have to do the right thing, even if it's painful. And he said to one guy that we had to let go, he said, are you still going to pay him? And I said, oh yeah. I said, he's been here a long time. So even though we're letting him go today, we're going to pay him for the next 2 months. And he said, well, if we're going to pay him for 2 months, why don't we have him work here for the next 2 months and get some work out of him? And I said, well, the truth is that if you make that decision, that's your decision. But if you let him work here for 2 months because you're thinking he'll be productive, he won't be very productive. He'll just sow discord among the employees. And even whatever work he does, you'll probably wish he was gone, so he wouldn't have been so negative around everybody else, because he knew he was on his way out. And he said, I don't think he'll do that. Well, he did. And he said later, I wish we would have just let him go and then go ahead and pay him severance pay because he's been here a long time, and show him some grace, which gave him 2 paychecks to go find another job and find something else to do. But I'm just telling you that if you don't want to do this kind of thing, then don't take the jobs that require you to do this kind of thing. And usually when it says design a separation program, It usually means that you just have to decide, okay, you have to decide how this is going to play out. Based on how long they've been here, what they've done, how much you're going to pay them. I do know this, that, and here again, decisions have ramifications. If I say to somebody, if this guy who had a moral infraction, if I say you're fired, now if he goes to his church, or maybe they have the same standards we have here, and they say, he said, they just fired me just like that, on a moment's notice. And he said, what for? Well, for doing thus and so. Well, that's no big deal. But he said, well, yeah, but it was a standard they had at school, and I signed it that I lived by that standard, and I didn't do it, so they fired me. He said, well, I could see them doing that. And so then the next question this pastor's going to say is, so when's your last paycheck? And if he says, well, my last paycheck was the one I got today, and I won't get another one unless I have a new job before 2 weeks. Now, do you follow how they can look at us and say, boy, those people are really hard-hearted? You follow how someone could say that? Because have any of you ever applied for a job where you have to work for a week before you get a paycheck? Or work for sometimes 2 weeks before you get a paycheck? So in my mind, if a person has to go get a job and work for 2 weeks before they get a paycheck, they probably need about enough money to live for a month. Follow my thinking? Now see, in my heart of hearts, here's what I say. If you're an adult, shouldn't you have a month worth of money in the bank just in case you lose your job? So, that's his problem, right? He should have had the money put aside. Well, you can say what you want, Tom, but that's not going to be, that decision, that outlook will not be considered Christian compassion by his pastor. So what would be perceived as being at least compassionate in terms of separation? Giving him a paycheck for the next month. Reactions? So even though he doesn't have this job anymore, he's going to be able to pay his bills for a month till he gets a new job and has a new paycheck started. So I'm at least trying to take care of his family while I'm letting him go. And hopefully I'm maintaining a good reputation for the school with the people who adhere to the standards and want to see them followed, and to the people who think we're a little too demanding and kind of heartless. I don't mind if they say I'm too demanding, but to say I'm heartless and incompassionate, say no, if it only costs me 1 month's salary to be perceived as a compassionate person, I can handle that. You follow me? I can spend that money for the sake of the reputation of our ministry. Okay. Any questions? You ready to take a job of hiring and firing people?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Oh, it's time for communication. Communication. Here's what Rush says in his book in chapter 8. 7 common communication barriers. On page 120. That might be the old book. 7 common communication barriers. Okay, listen to these 7. Tuning people out and hearing only what we want to hear. So what's the first thing that creates a barrier when we're having communication? Tuning people out and listening to only what we want to hear. Or just hearing part of a conversation. In fact, I thought years ago I did a wonderful thing when I developed the skill of being able to do 2 things at once. And that was, I've gone to school so much, sitting in a graduate school classroom and reading a textbook and taking notes on a lecture all at the same time. And some professors don't think you can do that. So the guy would say, Tom, he would ask me a question about what he was saying, and I would look up and answer his question and still have my textbook open. And then he'd say, oh, thank you very much. So that's when he would decide, oh, Tom really can do two things at once. Now, your generation has keyboards in front of you and screens, and I think probably what I used to do was kind of rare and where it's quite common today, where you learn to do two things at once. So this also means that since I can do two things at once in a university classroom, that means when I get home, I can read the paper and carry on a conversation with my wife at the same time. Now, how come the heads aren't bobbing up and down? Yes, you can do that. And have you figured out which professors want your undivided attention and which ones don't mind if you do two things at once? You say, yeah. And see, because in other words, there's a place for that. But do we understand that when we're doing two things at once, sometimes we only pick up part of a conversation and not the whole thing? And sometimes when we're doing that, not only is it a barrier to communication, but it adversely affects the communication process, because when the professor's talking and you're looking at your computer screen instead of him, what can he start to think? That they're not listening to me. So that's not a barrier necessarily, that just damages the communication process, because then it makes the professor start to think they're not paying attention. But the closer a person is to doing two things at once, and especially with technology, the more they understand how it works. The further they are away from that, the less they understand it, and the more you have to be sensitive to those people's needs. Just like when I was a professor here on campus, where I had students come into my office to see me, I'm sitting here working away, and you would come in to ask me a question, and you'd say, are you busy? And I'd say, no, have a seat. What can I do for you? And while I'm talking to you, I would keep on writing, because I can do two things at once. Now, if I did that the whole time, what would you say when you left my office? You got your questions answered, but what?
You weren't paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention. See, isn't this funny? Students think, what's wrong with professors when they're that way? And all of a sudden, when a professor does that to you, it's like, he's not paying attention to me. So it's just like, hey, that street goes both ways. So you have to say, sometimes I have to. So what that means is, when I'm in my office, Daniel, and a student would walk in to see me, I knew what I had to do. I would be right. He said, are you busy? And I said, no, that's why I keep my door open. Come on in, what do you need? And you walk in, and I'm right away talking to you, and I go, what's happening? Look them right in the eye and say, what's going on? Because that's what people need. Right? And then while I'm talking to the person, the phone rings. And I keep talking to them, and pretty soon they say, aren't you going to answer the phone? I said, you were here first. I could see Daniel saying, aren't you going to answer that phone? I said, no, you were here first. They can leave a message. I'll take care of them after I take care of you. Because see, personally, here's another thing about me. Personally, I think it's rude to interrupt a conversation to answer a telephone. And one time a student said to me, what if somebody died? I said, will answering the phone bring them back to life? No. If I don't find out about their death till after our conversation's finished, will that change anything? No. So let's finish our conversation, because you're coming here to see me is important. we'll take care of that, and then I'll go to the phone and see what that was all about. Somehow, the telephone seemed to, oh, has that happened today with these goofy cell phones? A cell phone rings and people think like, if I don't answer it, my heart will stop beating. I don't think so, people. I take a cell phone with me when I go to watch my grandson play baseball in the summer, and he's out there pitching and I'm making a video of it, and the phone rings and my wife says, are you going to answer it? And what's the answer to that question? I'm going to turn off the video and answer the phone, and while I'm talking on the phone to my sister from Oklahoma who says, hi Tom, what you doing? I'm going, I was taping my grandson playing baseball, but you called, so I answered the phone, and I just missed him striking somebody out. So I'm not going to have that conversation. I just will answer the phone, and then after the inning's over, I put the camera down. He's not up to bat yet, and I pick up the phone and go, oh, my sister called. I punch redial, call her back, and I say, so what's going on? She goes, I just called you, why didn't you answer? I said, I was taping my grandson playing baseball. See, I'm in a much better frame of mind. I mean, why do we let these machines control our lives? Rather than saying, the machine is a tool that I use to do what? To communicate with people. And I'm going to do everything I can to enhance good communication. And it really starts with doing away with all of these barriers. And the first one is just not hearing everything somebody's saying. The second one is allowing emotions to distort the meaning. Allowing our emotions to distort the meaning. When I marked ice cream off the list, can you see where Daniel could have thought, he doesn't like me? It's like, I didn't even know it was Daniel's idea. But once I found out it was Daniel's idea, and how did I find that out? How did I find out that was Daniel's idea?
Emotional outburst.
Now, okay, now see, there it is, Daniel, right there. Now, no, when he went, he hit his heart. And what did Esther call that action?
An emotional outburst.
That's okay, is that a little over the top?
No.
You understand? See, that's where communication, emotions. Okay, there's a picture in the book on this communication thing, and words, the words we use are just a very small part of this whole communication process, and the emotional tone and the emotions we feel are like, I think it's like the words are about a third, and the other 66% is our feelings and our tone of voice and our gestures and our facial expressions and our emotions. And the first time I read that years ago, I go, no, that can't be. My words are what it's all about. No, it's the tone I use. It's the emotions involved. It's even the emotional tone of the words I use. The tones that are highly charged emotionally. So, yes, emotions distort the meaning. Number 3, a lack of trust in the other person's motives. Did I mark off any suggestions? Okay, did any of you make suggestions that were passed over? Did any of you suggest snacks that are not on the table? Did you suggest some that weren't on the table? Did you, on the list, the original list when you wrote them on the card, did you put some on the card that we don't have on the table? Did I overlook some of your suggestions?
Yeah.
All of them are here. What did you suggested all this stuff that we have on the table?
No, just popcorn.
Okay, what did you suggest anything else?
Yes.
What?
Like chips and chocolate.
Chocolate. Did you suggest anything that wasn't What, Esther?
Fruit.
Fruit.
Mm,
Fruit and chocolate. Now guess what? You know why he didn't put fruit and chocolate on the list? Because he's a bad person. And he doesn't like fruit and chocolate. You understand? You understand that this is like, we're talking about 7 common communication barriers. And it's just, I don't trust the other person's motives. Now watch this one, guys. This is a good one for you when you think about getting married someday. If you make a criticism of the way your wife does something, what's he doing? He's being critical. That's why it's called a criticism, right? He's being critical. Guess what happens when she criticizes something you're doing? Is she being critical? Yes or no? If I'm being critical when I criticize something she does, I'm being critical. Is she being critical when she criticizes something I do? Okay, you're wrong. You're wrong, boys. You're wrong. Tell them what she's doing, Esther. She's not being critical. She's being, it starts with an H. Helpful.
Helpful.
Because what's her job from God's perspective? God gave Adam a wife to be his what?
Helper.
Helpmate, his helper. So she's being helpful. If you don't figure that out, you're just stupid. And you'll be sorry if you don't figure that out. And it's like, how can that be? It's like, look at it, the big picture from God's perspective. But you understand the flow of that? It's like, no, he's just being critical. But I'm being helpful. Because I'm his helpmate. And just take that one with you and say, you know, this is just life. And you have to understand this stuff, or else you're going to build barriers to communication. Different value systems and perceptions, that's different perceptions. From a wife's perception, from a husband's perception. Number 5, unwilling to receive information that conflicts with predetermined viewpoints. Why did I mark off ice cream? What was my real motive for marking ice cream off? Anyone know?
So it melts.
It would melt. That was my motive. It would melt. And let's just elaborate on that. And melted ice cream wouldn't be any fun to eat.
You sure about that?
It's pretty fun.
It was pretty good.
Well, I don't care what you people say. What you just said conflicts with my predetermined viewpoint.
But what about your wife's?
And I just ate some of that stuff, didn't I, Daniel? Because I had to taste it when it was melted. And what did I say about it while they were out of the room during the break?
That was good.
That's good stuff. I cannot believe I said that. I said something that conflicts with my predetermined viewpoint. And do you understand that one of the reasons I could do that is because I've studied this stuff, and I say, if you're not willing to receive information that conflicts your predetermined viewpoint, you have a barrier that you're putting up to communication. See, it helps to teach this stuff because it reminds you of it from time to time. Words that have several meanings. What did I do? Hit him right in the heart. So, how did he feel about what I did? Took it right to the heart. No, Esther. What did he do?
Overly dramatic and overly emotional and sensitive.
He overreacted because he's overly emotional. Over.
Not that I'm any of those things.
Words that have several meanings. He's just more emotional than the other 3 people in this room. He feels things more deeply. You don't see Todd going, chocolates off the list. You don't see Esther going, fruits off the list. But wouldn't it be a shame if all of us in this room had the same reaction to everything, and we were all just a bunch of robots?
With very high emotions.
I mean, do we want all of us in this room to be carbon copy duplicates of any one of us? Do I want all of you to be carbon copy? Do I want to sit here and talk to 3 people who are spitting images of me? No way. What a boring life that would be. We would be arguing all the time, wouldn't we? It's the variety, it's the beauty of the garden that makes this world so. It's like, and what did God do? He made each of us unique, and all together we make up a body that it enhances the beauty of the body of Christ to have these differences. And sometimes these differences result in us using words that have different meanings to different people. And sometimes I find that I use words that I didn't realize they were offensive to somebody else. And then I'm thinking, whoops, they don't like that word. Don't use that word. Find another word to use that communicates, because if the word that I'm using has too much of a emotional overtone to it, it'll create a barrier to the communication process. Okay, number 7. People's actions do not correspond with what they say. I care about you people a great deal. Can you tell? I said I care about you. Isn't that enough?
When you brought food.
What?
I mean, you brought food. I mean, that's like.
Okay, so see, I brought some food. Doesn't that prove to you I care about you? It's like, yeah, but you know, you could change the tone a little bit and be a little more convincing. So my actions are not corresponding with what I said. I don't think we need snacks in this room. I don't know why you people want snacks anyway. Now, why are you smiling when I say that? Because my actions don't fit my words. Now, if I would have said that after we had our meeting on Monday, can't believe you people voted to have snacks. I mean, where's your Protestant work ethic? You don't work, you don't eat. You come here and work for 5 hours, you go to the cafeteria and eat. What's the deal? Snacks. Snacks. This snack stuff wears me out. I mean, if I would have given that speech on Monday, you might have gone over to the registrar and dropped a class and said, I don't know what this guy's problem is, but I'm not going back over there. He's over the top. You know, you understand? That it's just like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And the sad thing is that, now see, when I overstate the case, you see it, but do you understand how this stuff happens in very subtle ways all the time, and we're often not even aware of it? I mean, I know I have a raspy voice that doesn't have a soft, assuring, pleasant tone. I can talk that way if I have to, like I'm talking to a little grandchild about something, but I can't do that with you. To me, that would be demeaning. You know what I mean? That would be treating you like little children. And I talk to you like adults because you are adults. And I carry on adult conversations. Although, you guys working with teenagers, I worked with teenagers for years. Then my 2 daughters grow up to be teenagers. And I said one time, I said, girls, I have to tell you something. This really puzzles me. I do not understand this. And they said, what's this, Dad? I said, help me with this. I have all these teenagers who want to hear what I have to say about things and take my advice all the time. And then I have 2 teenagers that live at my house who don't want to hear what I have to say and wish I'd keep my advice to myself. Can you help me understand what's going on here? They go, sure, Dad, that's easy. I go, that's what they said. I said, it is? They said, yeah, you're our father. I said, yes? Well, that's the difference. You're not their parent. You're their youth pastor. You're not our youth pastor. You're our father. I'm going, man. I can't be a father/youth pastor to my own 2 teenage daughters? What's the answer to that question? No, I can't. Do you realize how painful that was for me to say that? So guess what I said? I went to my daughter's youth pastors on a regular basis and said, I want to thank you for what you do in my daughter's lives. You do in my daughter's lives what I do in other people's daughters' lives. Because teenagers, if everything they get comes from their parents, somewhere in life they start to struggle with, am I really me, the person I am, or am I just an appendage of my parents? You know what I'm talking about? And once they have another adult who's not blood related to interact with and come to the same conclusions that their parents have come to, it's different. You know what I'm talking about? Something happens. That's why something happens when you come to college, that you say, boy, I'm starting to internalize this stuff. When I hear people talking about it, it becomes mine, not just something my parents passed on to me. And that's when I realized I need the help of youth pastors with my own 2 daughters. And I made it a point that we went to church where we had good youth pastors so they could get the help they need, and good ladies in the church who would help mentor them to become godly women. And to this day, they have an admiration for the women and the men in their lives who, when they were adolescents, helped them make the transition to adulthood. And they appreciate their dad too. But because I did that with other people, I just assumed I could do it on my own. No, not going to work out. Going to have to take a different approach. Going to have to get some help here, Don. Okay, so the next thing is, how do I minimize misunderstandings? So you're looking for some points on how to memorize misunderstandings from Chapter 8 in Rush, Communication Skills. Number 1, use face-to-face communication, which means you put the pen down, you put the phone down, and you look them right in the eye. Do any of you have trouble maintaining eye contact with people? Is that uncomfortable to anyone here to look people in the eye? Look me in the eye and see if it's a pleasant or an unpleasant experience. Are you enjoying looking me in the eye, or would you say I'm more comfortable looking away while I'm listening to you? Which do you prefer? Keep looking me in the eye while I'm coming back and forth and running around this room. Keep looking right in my eyes while I'm doing this. I just need to check you out here. And can you tell look at me, can you tell I'm not looking at your eyes? Can you tell I'm not looking at your eyes? Can you tell I'm not looking at your eyes? You know what I'm looking at? The tip of your nose. And all 3 of you have funny looking noses. So it makes me smile, and you think I'm being friendly. I think the tip of everybody's nose looks a little cute, a little funny. Now, I will tell you, I don't have trouble looking at people's eyes now. But years ago, when I first learned this stuff, okay, I'm a very shy, bashful person. When I was a student here in school, when they called my name in class to take attendance, when I would hear my name pronounced out loud in a room with 25 or 30 people in it, I would get immensely embarrassed. and my face would turn red, and my ears would just glow. And everybody thought it was so funny. Oh, look at Tommy, he's embarrassed. That's how shy I was. So when I was told in class to look at, to have eye contact, I'm going, the eye is the gateway to the soul. I'm looking into people's souls, they're looking into mine, I can't handle this. And then I realized, I read someplace, oh, you can look at the tip of their nose or their eyebrows, and it looks like you're looking them right in the eye, doesn't it? Isn't that something? So if it's just a personality thing where you're that shy, don't worry about it. Just look at eyebrows or look at noses, and then it'll take away the intimidation factor, and you can still carry on the conversation. Because what are you doing? You are minimizing. You're doing face-to-face stuff without being too intimidated by it. What's the second thing? Use direct, simple words. You know what I like about the way, have you read any books written by Charles Ryrie? The reason I like reading his books is he has a huge theological mind, but he knows how to put things in simple, direct words where a friend of mine said one time, you put the cookies on the shelf where everybody can reach them. You know, you put, it's just, sometimes I read articles in journals and on the internet and things, and the guy's just using 50-cent, 75-cent words. And I'm going, I don't know what he's saying. So I get my dictionary and look the word up, and there's a simple basic word to communicate the same thing. And I'm thinking, why is he using a 75-cent word when a 25-cent word would work? Well, he's impressing you with his scholarship because it's a scholarly journal. Okay, but can you see if you spend your life reading scholarly journals, you start carrying on everyday conversations with 75-cent words when really, if you want to communicate clearly with people, use simple, direct words as much as you can. Solicit feedback from the listeners. When I say, you know what I'm talking about? Now, sometimes people say, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes when someone says, I said, no, I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying? Because, you know, sometimes people say something, they say, you know what I'm saying? And I think they're asking that because they're not sure what they're saying. So I tend to want to say, no, I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying? And then they can say, well, I don't know for sure what I'm saying either. And we could just have an honest conversation about, we're not really sure what we're trying to communicate here. But sometimes, we just develop what I call little ticks in life. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it's all unnecessary. If anything, it distracts from the communication process. So get some feedback, but try to avoid all that redundancy and unnecessary stuff. Give your full attention to the speaker. Oh, sorry about that. You know what? You know what I concluded we do in America? Television, I think personally, I think television did this to us. Here's what television did. It taught us to just listen to people talking while we're thinking. So now you can actually observe this. Sit in a cafeteria in the corner and watch a table of conversation going on, and it's almost like people aren't really listening to each other. They just take turns talking at each other. Like, I'm waiting for you to stop talking so I can say what's on my mind, and then after I say what's on my mind, you didn't really hear everything I said because you were developing what you were going to say next to tell me what's on your mind. So we just kind of sit at a table and take turns telling each other what we're thinking. Listening becomes in this day and age, listening becomes a full-time process, giving my attention to the speaker. And probably the best way to do that is to say, now I keep a pencil in hand, because if I had a brilliant thought while you were talking, I could stop listening to develop my brilliant thought, but if I just jot it down real fast, then I can keep it for later and come back to it without losing it. Also, with my pencil in hand, when I'm talking to you, if I write something down while you're talking and I'm listening to you, and then you say, what are you writing down? It's like, I'm taking notes on what you're saying so I won't forget it. Is that pretty powerful? Say, I want to remember what you're saying, so I'm writing it down. And then along the way, I can write down some of my brilliant thoughts. Because remember I told you the other day, every thought I have is borderline brilliant. You know, I mean, just it's sad. You know, being completely transparent with people is pretty scary stuff. But some of this stuff, if you don't develop some transparency, you don't help people sort through this whole issue and get the full benefit of what these people are saying in these books. So you give your full attention to the speaker, and one of the best ways is to take notes. And after they finish speaking, there's even a little exercise, a communication exercise you can do, where we can sit around a room and have a conversation, but I can't say anything till after the person who was talking quits talking, and before I say something, I repeat what they said. It's just kind of a little exercise in learning how to listen more thoroughly to what other people have to say. Never interrupt. One time in this class, I was giving this lecture, and I said, don't interrupt people, let them finish. And after class, somebody walked up to me and said, Dr. Conrad, I know you believe what you just said, but did you know you just did it in class? So-and-so was talking about something and you interrupted him. I was going, yeah, you're right, I did. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Now, you know why I interrupted him? I was looking at the clock and I saw how much time we had left, and I had some stuff I wanted to finish. So I had a good reason to interrupt. Oh, it says, don't interrupt unless you have a good reason. Is that what Rule 5 says? No, it says never interrupt. Because if I interrupt because I have something good to say, is the person listening to the good thing I'm saying? No, what are they thinking? He interrupted me. He didn't let me finish. You follow me? I've lost the conversation by trying to maximize the conversation. I've damaged the conversation time by trying to maximize it. So after this guy brought it, I said, thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's something I have to work on all the time. Because once I know where you're going and what you're saying, if I can finish your thought, then what's the point of you keep talking? Let's move on from there. You follow the way my mind works? Yeah? Well, the way your mind works damages communication because you interrupt people. Don't do that. Let them finish. Let them talk till they're through talking. And then when they're through talking, then you can pick it up. You say, yeah, but some time got wasted, so it's just time. I mean, lighten up a little bit. You know, just waste a little time for the sake of conversation. Well, the next day in class, I thought I'd do an experiment. I said, you know, yesterday in class I was talking about never interrupt as how to minimize misunderstanding in conversation. And someone after class pointed out to me that I interrupted somebody yesterday. And then I asked this question, did anyone notice me interrupting somebody yesterday? I said, how many noticed? Okay, there's like 15 people in the class. How many people raised their hand? What?
15?
Esther, do you have to beat me with a stick? All 15 raised their hand. And only one had the courage to come and tell me about it. And I had to just say, oh, thank you guys for being honest. I have to work on this one all the time. And I said, and did you notice when I interrupted that it was, my reason was because I had some things to say and time was running out, but I'm thinking that the things I said after time ran out after I interrupted that guy, you guys weren't all listening because you were just told me you remember me interrupting, so you probably don't remember those things I said. So I need to go back to my notes and pick up where I interrupted that guy and finish what we were talking about yesterday. You follow what happened? And what is after never interrupting? What's number 6? Encourage freedom of expression. There were 15 people in the class, and one person freely expressed himself. Do you think he felt a little nervous coming up to me and saying that? Was that beneficial for the whole class for him to share that? He said, yes, since you reacted the way you did. But it could have been detrimental to his grade. No. Would a teacher mark his grade down for pointing out that he violated one of the rules that he was teaching in class? Well, maybe. See, what I want to hear all of you say is, no, all the professors in my life are professional people who live above reproach. Well, you can think what you want, but life goes on, right? I mean, do you understand? And so it's just like, hey, in fact, in grad school, I had some professors who said, hey, if you don't like this test I just gave, you think there's something wrong with it, let's talk about it. And some lady goes, well, since you said that, question number 7, and she began to critique question number 7 on his test, and he goes, I'll have you know something, man, that these items discriminate. I've run them through the discrimination test, and they separate the people who know this stuff in this class and the people who don't, and if you didn't answer that correctly, it's because you didn't know the material. He said, anybody else have a question about the test? And during the break, we're standing out in the hall, and the lady's over the corner kind of crying away. And she said, I said, are you okay? She goes, well, he said if you have a question about the test, feel free to ask it. I said, haven't you been in school long enough to know that everybody who says that doesn't mean it? I always wait to see what happens when somebody else criticizes them before I'll make a critical statement, because I want to find out what flavor this professor is. Does he really mean this stuff, or is he just barking out words that are supposed to be said, but he doesn't really have his heart in it? Wow. Freedom of expression. I had a young man, a teenager, say to me when I was a school principal, he said, Mr. Bonine, if I told you what I really thought of you as a principal, you would kick me out of school. And I said, no, I won't. I said, now, if you said it in class, I would probably I would write you up for being disrespectful to people of authority. But if we meet privately and it's just the two of us, I said, so let's eat lunch together. Just a table off by ourselves. Let's sit down at the table. And that's not hard to do with a teacher, because if the teacher's in the cafeteria, everybody wants to sit someplace else other than close to his table. So I'd get a table off in the corner, and he'd sit down, and I said, so it's just the two of us. So tell me what you think of me as a principal. And he goes, you stink. And I go, you mean I don't wear deodorant enough? I said, I put on Right Guard every morning before I come to school. He goes, no, Mr. Bodine, I don't mean that kind of stink. I said, what do you mean? And he said, the way you run things around here. And I said, tell me about it. What am I doing that just irritates you? And he started telling me what I was doing and the way he didn't like it. And I said, so if you were in charge, would you do it differently? Yes, I would. And I said, so how would you do it if you were in charge? And he began to tell me how he would do it if he was in charge. And I said, wow, you've got a lot of good ideas. And then I said, you know what you need to do? He said, what? I said, you need to get your high school diploma, go get a college degree, get a master's degree in school supervision, and come back and apply for my job, and I'll bet they'll hire you and fire me. He said, you think? I said, I think so. He said, so I guess you're not going to use any of my good ideas? I said, not very many of them. But they're still good ideas. I mean, why not give him, I mean, is it okay if we disagree on how to be the principal in a school? And is it okay for him to have a much different philosophy? Yeah, and we can still be friends. And can he still go to school, at a school where he doesn't like the way I run things? Yes. And will it serve him well in life to learn how to live and do his work in a setting where he doesn't like the way the guys in charge runs things? So he can learn to get along with all kinds of people. So it's like, hey, go ahead and tell me how you feel and what you think. And of course, now because I teach all this psychology stuff around here, and I've taken all these psychology courses, you know, don't you, that if I really know how a person feels and what they think, I have more inroads into changing the way they think. If I know more about how you think and how you feel, I have a greater capacity to influence your thinking and your feeling about new information. You didn't know that? It's true. Okay. How to improve your listening skills? We're still in Rush's book. Ask questions for clarification. Is that what Esther and Talk did while you were having your meeting, asking questions for clarification? They were trying to improve the communication process. 2, don't formulate your responses while the speaker is still talking. Wait till they're finished. And in fact, say, you know, when you said thus and so and thus and so, my first reaction was thus and so and thus and so. Is that what you meant by that? No, they say. You misunderstood me. Whoa, well, I'm sure glad we had this conversation so you have a chance to clarify what you're saying. You follow? And it's easy to miscommunicate. Good communication doesn't just happen automatically. Miscommunication it's a very easy thing to have miscommunication. So you have to keep working at it. Don't assume you know what the speaker is going to say. Well, yeah, but sometimes I do know what they're going to say. No, you don't. You just assume you know what they're going to say. The only way you'll know for sure what they're going to say is when you don't interrupt them and let them finish and say it. Avoid interrupting the speaker. Listen for the ideas and the feelings behind the words being spoken. No words were spoken. What words would you put to that? Oh. Let's see. Let's think of some words we can put to that action. Uh-oh. Hit me in the gut. Hurt my heart. Put some words to that action. Oh, Esther already did, didn't she? What's Esther's words to that action? Over dramatic and oversensitive. Just say words. And what does it say here? That listen for the ideas and feelings behind the words being spoken. Okay, when she says over dramatic and overreacting, over emotional and over dramatic. Now, are you just listening to the words she said, or are you listening to the ideas and the feelings behind the words? You see the difference? And watch what happens in conversations that go awry. Well, this is what you said, and this is what that means. No, what I just said was, what you just said, those words mean this in my head. Do they mean the same thing in your head? No. You criticized me? Yes. But I can't criticize you? Well, you can if you're being helpful. Ah, see the difference? My wife criticizing me is being helpful. My criticizing her is just being critical. You go, what? Ideas and feelings. And can you see with my raspy, harsh voice and my personality, if I make a critical statement about something, it could register much more intently than what I intended it. My wife cooks a delicious meal when I first get married. And I'm sitting there eating this wonderful meal, and I'm thinking, what do you say? What does a man say to his wife when she cooks a delicious meal? I go, well, my dad always said, Thelma, that wasn't half bad. And my mom said, thank you, Bo. So I heard it all my life. So I go, Nina, that wasn't half bad. And I'll never forget till I'll remember to my dying day what she said. I don't know what to say. Should I say thank you or dump the rest of this in your lap? I'm going, what? She goes, I don't know what half bad means. I said, oh, it means that was delicious. She said, now that I understand. I'm going, whoa. My dad said it, my mom understood it, my wife didn't. That's what you get for marrying a city girl instead of a farm boy. I mean, instead of a farm girl, you know? Yeah. Marry a girl from the city or marry a girl from the farm, you get a different response. You're married to a city girl, Tom, you better learn to say what? Delicious? That's what she gets for marrying a farm boy. That's not half bad. That's sad. So, what happens? I have to get to the feelings and the ideas behind the words being spoken. Sometimes when I'm preparing a message on a sensitive area in the Bible, I'll say, Nina, these are the words I'm planning to use. What do you think? She goes, well, maybe you'll want to find a different word for some of those. And I'm going, thank you for your help. Once in a while in life, she's suggested that I might use a different word, and I'm going, why? This is the best word to convey the concept. So I use the word, sure enough, I get in trouble. Should have used a softer, less emotional word that didn't stress so many people out. Okay. Let's see. Rush chapter 11 and 12. Since we're in Rush, I'll just go ahead and finish this stuff with him. Rush chapter 11 and 12. Attitude and performance. The Bible commands us to think, Rush says, positively. What does the Bible command us to think? Philippians 4:8, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Think on these things that are from above, not on things on the earth. Now, I'm a very positive person, but does the Bible command me to be a positive thinker? Or am I just, what? If you see a glass of water here and it has half a glass of water, is the glass half full or half empty? And the answer is it's both. The question is, how do you perceive it? as half full or half empty. And a lot of that has to do with personality. That tells me that Rush sees the glass as half full. And he would maybe be critical of the person who saw it as half empty, when in fact it takes both perspectives to get the whole picture. I'm thinking that when I look at what the Bible commands me to think, it commands me to think like Christ did. And not everything he said had a positive spin to it, right? Some things were rather scary and negative and not pleasant. So I guess the Bible commands me to think soberly, soundly, and maybe get your concordance and go through there and think of all the where the Bible talks about thinking, and be careful that, again, even though Rush's book is old and it's been written a long time ago, we still live in a culture that likes to think that someone even wrote a song about it. Accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. You don't know that song? And don't mess with Mr. In Between. Well, if someone makes a song about it and everybody starts singing it as some kind of cute little social ditty, do you understand? We probably live in a culture that's been affected by that, where let's only talk about the positive. When I grade papers in math, if you miss one, I check it wrong. Well, that's not the right thing to do. The check marks should only be by the ones we got right. We don't talk about the ones we missed. I'm thinking, no, the ones you got right, that's great. The ones you missed, you need to correct them and figure out why you missed them. No, that's too negative. Let's be positive. Let's have a contest and everybody gets a prize. Because we don't want anybody to feel bad about the contest, then it's not a contest if everybody gets a prize. It's an exercise with a prize for everyone. You follow? That let's be careful that we don't try to assume that our cultural emphasis on being so positive is thinking the way God thinks. I mean, it's, again, when I was a student here, okay, I'm a positive kind of personality, so it's like I go through the Bible and make a list of all the things God tells us to do. Emphasize the positive. But are there some things that God tells us not to do? Those would be negatives. So I make a list of those. I put the two lists on the table to, just out of curiosity, since I'm mathematical, and I wonder which list is longer, the list of positives or the list of negatives. Any idea what I discovered?
Negatives.
What do you think? I don't know. You don't want to guess. What do you think, Todd? You don't know either. Esther's the only one that's willing to take a risk and guess. And what I discovered was the lists are about the same length. Isn't that interesting? There's a real balance in terms of God tells me, don't do this, but do this. Don't do this, but do this. Don't do this, but do this. And I thought that's what I need in life, is a balance. So I don't just be negative with my kids. I say, don't do this, but do this. You can't do this, but you can do that. And try to find that balance in terms of the way I work with people. Okay, so attitude, develop a biblical attitude. And okay, there's times for it to be positive, there's times for it to be a little negative. How do you maintain a positive mental attitude? Okay, if you want to have a positive outlook on life, here's what Rush says to do. Focus on God instead of self or others. Look to the future rather than the past. Always have a goal that is Christ-centered and view problems as opportunities for improvement. Now you see, I like those suggestions. If I focus on myself, I might see where I can't handle it. If I focus on God, what is it the Bible says? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Look to the future rather than the past. I've got a Bible verse for that one, don't you? Forgetting those things that are behind, I press on toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Always have a goal that is Christ-centered. What's your goal in life? What's the purpose for man's existence? According to the Westminster Catechism. To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. View problems as opportunities for improvement. The more you solve problems, the better you get at problem solving. Every time you encounter a new problem, when I went home yesterday and my wife said the sewer was backing up, I go, well, let me get in the truck and run down there and check out the lagoon. Sure enough, the pump's not pumping water out fast enough. Well, I better run up to Lowe's and get a new pump. Take it down there and put it in. Starts pumping it out. In about 6 hours, we'll be okay. And 6 hours later, we were doing okay at the house. And this morning, I get up to leave and Nina says, oh, everybody's taking showers, they're running the washing machine and the sewer's not backing up. You fixed it. I said, praise the Lord. She goes, you're just amazing, Tom. My wife, she sure is a wonderful person, isn't she? To think I'm amazing. But I've solved that problem before, so I know what to do to take care of it. I know what I should do. That wouldn't happen if I had a spare pump in the pond already. I mean, what's the likelihood of both pumps quitting at the same time? Now, see, now you're going to learn something else about my personality. But to buy 2 pumps would cost twice as much as one. And I just don't want to spend the money. Yeah, well, you're going to have to spend it on a new rug and on your wife being exhausted from trying to clean the basement. Maybe you should have bought 2 pumps. Maybe I should go home and ask her. No, don't ask her if she wants to get it. She'll say, of course, whatever you can do to keep the sewer out of the basement. All right, enough of that. So attitude, now I do agree with Rush on this one. Attitudes are contagious. If you have a negative outlook, it spreads. If you have a positive outlook, it spreads. The leader must continually be aware of the morale and the attitude within his group. Individual feelings can quickly become the feelings of the entire organization. So, we can have a negative tone or a positive tone. Now, I prefer a positive tone. Yeah, but sometimes, Tom, we just need to be realistic. Okay? Let's be realistic. Are there realistically some negative things to consider? Yes, there are. So completely, what? Accent the positive, eliminate the negative? No. I'm going to emphasize being positive because I have more fun living on that side of the street. But there's also the negative side that I'm going to have to deal with. And I think you can even deal with the negative side in a positive manner. What? Yeah. What's something God told me not to do? Thou shalt not lie. Right? So God said, don't lie. Period. So does that include stretching the truth, exaggerations, fibs, stories, storytelling, all that kind of stuff? White lies, whatever those are. Now we give colors to them. What's a purple lie and a green lie look like? If that's a white lie. I don't understand that. I don't understand how we use words. But so okay, so God says don't lie. Yeah, but you know what? There's a reason for that. You know what that does for you? If you don't lie to people and people know you're honest with them, you have more friends who trust you than you would have otherwise. Agreed? So there's the positive spin to the negative things in life. Just don't tell lies and people will find you trustworthy and you'll have more friends because they like trustworthy people. And they say, well, I can trust you. Is this really going on? And it's like, yeah, but sometimes you tell a lie just because it makes a good joke. Yeah, but if I'm joking around too often to where people lose the confidence to believe what I'm saying, then maybe I carried it too far. Okay. What am I doing now? Putting this communication thing aside and picking up on, picking up on this little picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words. We'll see if it is. Communicate or else. Page 111 and 112. This is probably from The Art of Management for Christian Leaders. See if that's it. Nope, I don't know where it came from. But it's up on Canvas under Files. So here's the guy on the left. Saying, this is what you should do about. Now, right away, what did he just say? This is what we should do. Okay, now if I was the guy on the left, here's what I would say. This is what we could do. Is there a difference between saying this is what we should do and this is what we could do? There is, Esther?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
This is what we should do is very like, this is what we are gonna do. This is what we could do is very much more like, this is probably a good option, but we can evaluate it.
Do you agree with Esther? Do you agree with what Esther said? I could. But are you ready for this? When my wife says, Tom, this is what you should do, she doesn't mean that you should do this. What she means is this is what you could do as an option. So what are you thinking? So why doesn't she use could instead of should? If they mean the same thing in her mind, does it matter which word she uses?
Maybe not in her mind.
Okay, remember what did we say? Getting to the ideas and the feelings behind what's being said. If they mean the same thing in her mind, then don't get bent out of shape when she says should, because she means could. But if she's speaking to a group of people, will everyone understand that should and could are interchangeable? But here's what Nina would say. Fortunately, Tom, I don't speak to groups of people. That's your job. I only talk to you this way because I'm your wife, and it's my job. Now, what's my job as the husband? To learn that when I have a conversation with my wife, should means could. But when I'm speaking in a public forum somewhere, or speaking to a group of people I supervise, which word would you recommend I use? Should or could?
Good.
Why?
Because it's not telling everybody in their own different situations what to do.
What's wrong with telling people what to do? I'm just asking. What's wrong with telling people what to do? It is not well received in modern America. I mean, what happens when you go around using should? Don't tell me what to do, right? Is that the response? Okay, what's your response to the guy who says, don't tell me what to do? You ready for my response? How come you can tell me what to do, but I can't tell you what to do? What are you talking about? What did he just tell me? Did he just give me an ultimatum? Don't tell me what to do. Well, what do you want me to tell you? Nothing. Nothing? No, don't tell me what to do. Make suggestions. Are you telling me what to do? Yes. Well, why is it okay for you to tell me what to do, but if I tell you what to do, you get all bent out of shape about it? What are you talking about? Do you understand? Trying to communicate with people who don't seem to understand the communication process? The guy says, you believe in absolutes? And what do you say? Yes. And what does he say next? There are no absolutes. And you say, what? He says, there are no absolutes. And what's the question you ask? Are you absolutely sure of that? And what does he say? What does he say?
Hopefully not yes.
Well, if he doesn't say yes, then what does that do to his original statement? You know what I'm thinking? Back to one of Daniel's favorite words. We got a bunch of stupid talk going on around this world we live in. Don't we? Just dumb stuff. People saying dumb stuff. Now, I agree that I live in a world where should is not a popular word. So I use could, because I'm trying to connect and communicate with people. And that's what we're talking about here. That's what it's been. And be sure and bring this with you when we come back tomorrow, because we're going to talk about this stuff some more. But, so I use could. But you know what's happened in our society? When I was a kid in school, we had posted on the wall 10 commandments. Any idea what the first one was? Do you know any one of the 10 commandments? They came out of the Old Testament in the Bible. They were posted on the wall in the classroom at school. Do you know any of those? Pick one and just recite it real quick here, just for fun. One of the 10 commandments.
Do not murder.
Do not murder.
Do not lie.
Do not lie. Now, is that a should or a could?
Or neither.
You could have you could avoid murder if possible. You could avoid lying. No, you should avoid murder. You should avoid lying, because God says don't do it. But we don't use. So I'm beginning to think the 10 Commandments have now become 10 suggestions that people can decide whether or not they want to take them or not. Is something going on in our world, or am I just turning into some kind of old, grumpy old man?
Well, God was saying it, so he kind of has the authority.
What?
God was saying it, so he has the authority to say it.
And so if we tell people this is what God says,
Well, then that's fine, but you can't tell them this is what I say and I have authority.
so that's why we can't use should as much as God can, because we're not the authority.
Yeah.
What about where God puts us in positions of authority? A parent, can they tell their children what they should do? Or can they just make suggestions?
I think they can until a certain age.
Because when they reach a certain age, they can just pack up and leave. Like I said to my teenage daughters, if your friends have such good parents, why don't you ask them if they want to adopt you? Now, you know what's sad today? There are parents today where if you say that to your kid, there are parents that say, oh, your parents are so terrible, you can come and live at our house. And they won't necessarily take care of them. They'll just let them live as they please because of the permissiveness in our society. So yeah, as a parent, I've got to take a different approach. But somehow I have to get people connected with God's absolutes and living accordingly. And saying, you know what? If these, and see these things I'm talking about, Okay, if we're not aware of it, they become barriers to communication and we lose out. See, that's why I said to the young people, well, that's what you think, Mr. Bonai. I said, no, I got that from the Bible. No, you didn't. Let's go see what the Bible says about it. Now I have to show them what God says about it. Now, in light of what God says about it, what do you think? Well, I have a different opinion now. Okay. All right. You're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. Bring this handout with you. We'll pick this up when we get here tomorrow.